Thanks for tuning in to You Are the Magic Pill. Do you often wish that you could just pop a magic pill that would change your life instantly, giving you everything that your heart desires? The truth is, you don't need one, because get this, you are the magic pill. I'm your host, Victoria, and during this podcast, I will be giving you a dose of my truth by keeping it real with inspiring stories and wisdom. My mission is to show you how to fall in love with yourself so that you can discover your own truth. If you are ready to realize that you are the magic pill, then come on a heroic journey with me to remember who you truly are, to activate that power found within. Hi, and welcome back to You Are the Magic Pill. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I am so excited because I have a very special guest that I have been following him for quite some time and finally connected. He's on my show today. I'm so excited. His name is Billy Carson. He's the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge, Inc. and the best-selling author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets and Woke Doesn't Mean Broke. He is also the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge TV, a new conscious streaming TV network. And he is an expert host on Deep Space, original streaming series by Gaia. He also serves as an expert host on Gaia's original series, Ancient Civilizations. He appreciates the dedication and hard work it takes to accomplish great things. He has earned the certificate of science with an emphasis on neuroscience at MIT and has the certificate in ancient civilization from Harvard University. Among his most notable achievements, Billy is the CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am just so amazed with this man. He is like a supercomputer. He knows so much information that most of us aren't even aware exists. And he has uncovered and discovered many truths. And that's why I wanted to have Billy on my show today, because I want to share with you, well, you know, my podcast is all about truth, right? And refining your real self and discovering new things that maybe you weren't aware of. And so that's why I have Billy on here today to share some information that you probably have never heard of. And maybe you have, but anyway, I am thrilled to have Billy Carson with me today. So this is a part one of a two-part series. So here we go. Hi, and welcome. I'm so excited to have you here on You Are the Magic Pill. Billy, thank you so much for joining with me.
Thank you for having me on. It's great to finally meet you for the first time, and I'm excited about this podcast.
Yeah, me too. I have to tell you before we get started and all the questions that I have for you, I have to tell you how I first came to find you, because honestly, I never heard about you. But, you know, somebody once said, seek and you shall find, right?
That's right.
So I was seeking some wisdom because I felt that calling inside. And it was during quarantine, and I was just really, you know, beginnings of quarantine, I was really going within and got jolted some like humanity. And I started to really just follow what I was being guided to. And then I had downloaded the Gaia app.
Wow.
And then lo and behold, one day after I had looked at a lot of stuff, just on Beyond Belief, I hadn't listened to Beyond Belief, but it was like, it popped, you know, like a suggested thing.
Yeah.
And it was your episode.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. One of them. And I was just like, oh, what's this? And so I pushed play and I'm not even kidding you. I started listening to what you were saying.
Yeah.
And it was like validating a lot of things that I had kind of been introduced to, but on a higher level.
Right.
And I just started crying.
Wow.
I started crying uncontrollably. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is truth. This is such truth that I've been seeking. Amazing. And so I really appreciate you doing that episode. And
wow. Thank you. That's amazing. I'm glad to hear that. That's fantastic.
It was very life-changing.
Yeah.
And so that was a big awakening process for me. So you were part of that. And then I connected with you on Facebook. So thank you for accepting my friendship, by the way.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah. I like connecting with like-minded individuals, people that are on the same frequency. You know, I get a lot, I have, I think, a waiting list of 2,000 friends. And so I click on their link to go to their page, check out their actual account just to see what kind of person it is, And so I saw that you were on the same frequency, and so I accepted it, like accepted the friendship. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. I was like, oh, cool. He accepted my friendship. I felt pretty special. So thank you.
No problem.
And then, it's really another cool aspect to how this is all taking place. And I know that I listened to an episode on your podcast and about manifestations. And so before that, about probably like 8 months ago, I put on my headset and I have a little recorder. That's how I do it, and how I record my podcast. And I recorded introducing you, and I visualized it. I actually cried again because I was so happy to have you on my show. And this was before I might have done like one episode. I think it was like actually during the process of me trying to find my voice. And I just imagined you on the show, and I was like, thanking you for joining me.
Wow.
And that was probably like 8 months ago. And then right before we started this path of talking more and more about the podcast episode that we're doing right now, I did some EFT tapping.
Okay.
And I was like, something really big is about to happen. Something so big is about to happen. And I'm going to be telling all my friends that I can't believe that this happened.
Right.
And then like less than 24 hours is when I made that post. You commented and I messaged you, and we started this process, and now we're here today.
That's it. That's how you literally created the ripples in space-time that altered your future reality and my future reality. And now both of our timelines and our reality tunnels that were moving in a separate path kind of now have merged together. And so for this period of time, we're on the same exact frequency.
Isn't that just fascinating?
Yeah. It's amazing.
That is so cool. And that's what I love about your stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, because my podcast is fairly new, and some of the people that listen maybe haven't ever heard of you either, like myself, but maybe they're seeking more truth, because we all kind of have that calling within us. And so that's what I wanted to ask you about. Like, I wanted to ask you, when did you first hear the call, and what is your process of your awakening?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I knew that I was a little bit different when I was a kid, when I was a small kid, like a child, a baby. Really, it was, when I was reading at children's books at 10 months, and I was reading real books at 1 year old, like novels. My first novel was The Sea Wolf by Jack London, which is a small novel. I mean, not more than like 100 pages, like a 4x6 size book, but a novel nonetheless. And I realized when I was listening even to like Sesame Street and some of these other kid shows, that I always felt like I was a little bit more advanced in what I was being shown. And so I knew that something was a little different, especially when I started observing my siblings. Eventually I had a younger brother who's 1 year younger than me, and then a sister who's about 6 years younger than me. And then another brother came, and I realized I was totally different from them in certain ways. And so as a young child growing up, I say right around the age of 6 or 7 is when I really began to understand that I was different. I started to come to terms with the difference in terms of like what my interests were, how I perceived things, how I perceived problems and issues compared to how they were perceiving what my friends were perceiving problems and issues with. And then in 1977, I saw what looked like to be an unidentified flying object in my backyard. And so this object, it was like an elongated object. It was more like this remote control, more like a oval.
Okay.
Kind of like this. Yeah, it wasn't round like a perfect disc. And the word UFO didn't exist back then for me. The words alien didn't exist. We didn't have Cartoon Network and everything. This is no cable TV. No cell phones, no pagers, nothing existed but just 4 channels on TV. You had to go outside and play, But when I saw this thing, it went across my horizon in the backyard in seconds, not minutes. And I knew even as a kid, airplanes would take a long time to cross the horizon. So I started investigating and researching aerospace the next day. I went to my elementary school, Rambo Park, took down all the Encyclopedia Botanicas on aerospace. And I literally started that day researching into aerospace and technology. And so technology and aerospace came long before the ancient civilization stuff. And then from there, because we were so poor where I grew up in Miami, I had sold all of my toys door to door just so I can have a couple dollars in my hands. And I told my mom, don't buy me any more toys, just get me books. And she started getting me Ripley's Believe It or Not books and biology books and books on economy and, all kinds of books. That's all I wanted was books, and also technological devices. Like from Radio Shack, they would have these LED circuit boards and schematic boards with soldering guns and stuff like that. So I just got into that stuff instead of playing with toys. Wow. And I remember standing in front of the window one day in my house in Opelika, and I was looking out the window, and my mom came over and said, "What's wrong?" I said, I feel like I just don't belong here. Like there's a lot of things wrong with this world." And that's when she started telling me about aliens. She started telling me, this is in the 70s, like 78 now. She told me about Machu Picchu. She told me that was remnants of an ancient airport. At the tops of mountains around the world, people from other planets would come down. She never used the word alien, but she used the term advanced beings. Mm-hmm. And that they would come down, and they would land on these mountaintops, and they ruled over different areas of the planet and so forth. One of the main bases was in Machu Picchu. And this is a long time ago for her to be telling me this stuff. And
that's incredible that she's sharing all that with you. And first off, like, wow to like all the things that you were doing, like, holy, that's impressive. Like, I've been fortunate. I'm fortunate to have, I don't have a photographic memory per se in the way that some people see things and they remember every single thing. But I have a photographic memory in a way where I use my synesthesia. I have something called synesthesia I was born with, where my audio and visual cortex are merged. And so every sound generates colors and numbers in my eyes. So even your voice generates colors. I've never heard of that. Yeah.
It's a medical condition. It's congenital. So 1 in 100,000 people are born with this. And a lot of people have it that you wouldn't know because, it's not made that much public. It's public knowledge, but it's not like talked about often. Even like Mary J. Blige, Billy Joel, a lot of musicians for some reason seem to come down with this or are born with this. A lot of big time music producers. And I think partly because we can correlate the colors and numbers with music notes. I correlate the colors and numbers with information. And so I'm able to store a massive amount of information and recall it based off of colors and numbers. It's really hard to explain, but it's a way of opening up a file cabinet and pulling back out information, So I've been fortunate to be able to do that. Yeah. But that's when I started. So once my mom told me about that, I kept researching aerospace technology. And eventually I started realizing correlations between aerospace and advanced tech, or what we call advanced tech, and what appeared to be ancient construction sites around the planet. Mm-hmm. And the more I dug into it, I started realizing and getting into ancient tablets and realizing that these people were more advanced than us at one point, and they were talking about some of the same things we're using today they had back then. So I realized that we are just another cycle of a civilization trying to build back up again.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I remember that made me think about like when I was watching that Beyond Belief, how you said that the cycle, like it keeps happening. And then you were like, well, maybe it doesn't have to. And I was like, maybe it doesn't. Like, maybe it doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, we're in like this loop. And so the Mayans said we've been through 4 worlds. It's not that we've gone to 4 planets. 4 worlds, meaning that we've literally, we've basically risen and fallen, several times, 4 times, and then we're heading into the 5th world. And so this is our 5th time ascending to another golden age. And like I said on the TV show, like there's nowhere written. I haven't seen any text written that says we have to keep going on these cycles of rising and falling. Let's get to a point where we can rise and sustain that rise. I'm sure other civilizations in the universe have already done that. And it's going to take a lot of work, but we can do it.
I felt that just now when you said that is truth. And when I watched that, that's I actually said it out loud and I was like kind of thinking it, and then you said it, and then just now I just really felt that. So I think that is definitely something that we could all like hope for and to like try to have happen. Mm-hmm. So for sure. So that kind of would lead me into like probably, I mean, I guess along your journey, what inspired you to do the compendium of the Emerald Tablets book? Yeah.
Well, I came across the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and probably around 2008, I think it was. And I started reading these ancient tablets from this Atlantean priest king named Thoth, who ruled over the land of Chem before it was Egypt. He ruled over the land of Chem for 14,000 years. And that's the Egyptians' record and account and their glyphs and their story. And I said, I got to read about this guy. So I started reading the tablets that he wrote. And what happened was mind blowing. I started really seeing geometrical shapes, patterns. I started obtaining higher levels of consciousness. And it said that the person who reads this 100 times will really have this huge awakening. So I made it a goal to read it over 100 times. And the more I read it, the more I could see. And so I started talking to other people about it. And some people had come across it, but not many back then. And the people who did, they only saw some of the esoteric wisdom, but they didn't see any of the technological things that were in there. They didn't see some of the correlations between that and what's been written now in modern religious books and other spiritual books, even across the span of spirituality, even into Buddhism. And I was like blown away. I said, there's a lot of correlations here. It looks like everything was taken out of these ancient tablets and then broken up and turned into their own separate little pieces. They took a little here, somebody took this and made it into that. And so I said, people should get an understanding of what these tablets are really all about and show that they're the original source for a lot of things that have come out of it. And so I decided to write this compendium of the Emerald Tablets so that, I can give the people of the world a chance to really understand and digest what's in this information and the true knowledge and wisdom that was imparted to us over 36,000 years ago.
Right. So I was listening to that and then reading a little bit of it also. And then because I would like for you to kind of compare it to the Bible or what your thoughts are about the Bible. And I know that this is a touchy subject for some people.
Yeah.
And before you answer that, I want to tell you, I woke up or I had this thought drop down one night because I went to seminary for a semester. I used to be a super Christian. I talked about that, I think on a couple episodes ago, but I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, one day you're going to have some conversation or you're going to be talking about how organized religion or how Christianity isn't necessarily it's not necessarily what it is. And Jesus's message is different because I changed my level of awareness is what you're talking about too. Your level of awareness and when you read Emerald Tablets was higher level than the other people. So you could see all that stuff. And so now when I read some Bible verses, my level of awareness has risen. So now it's I see Jesus's words as consciousness and teaching us about that. And it's I woke up and I was said to myself, you're going to have to talk about that one day. And I was like, oh gosh,
very true. And what's interesting, what I hear from you a lot is as you're talking, a lot of these epiphanies that you're having, what's really amazing is rarely do I hear people who understand that the epiphanies are their own voice. It's the spiritual consciousness or the universal consciousness that's influencing that, but it's really truly our own voice because the God is inside of us. And so what's a lot of people, they tend to go astray is they start to think that it's this other entity talking to them. But when you reach the highest level of understanding, you begin to realize that the voice that you hear in your head is actually your own. And, but that voice is still part of the one divine source. And so it is God, but God is also you. And so, it's really amazing. And the religious systems that have been put into place on the planet, they've taken that message and they've kind of skewed it for the purposes of control. So they've kind of really talked us out of believing that the power is in us and that the power is actually in them on the outside and or some other entity on the outside. And they're the go-through people to get to this source. When we have a direct connection with source because we're directly plugged into the same energetic grid that the source is plugged into. We're on the grid of the source. We're plugged directly in. And we've always been. And the atoms in our body has been on this grid for 13.7 billion years now. We're that's how old we are. And so religious systems have come up, risen and fallen, but now some have really stuck. And when you analyze their text, you realize that they've cut and pasted information from a lot of different ancient texts in the Bible. You see a lot of information from the Emerald Tablets. This on the spiritual aspect, and even where Jesus Christ is speaking, a lot of that correlates to the Emerald Tablets. And what's interesting about that is they're both saying the same thing, that we are the light to seek the light. The light is inside of us. that there's also darkness inside of us as well, but we must fight past the darkness to seek the light. We must, look to ascend and help and be of service to others, unconditional love, all these things. It's the same message. And so when, what happened with religion, unfortunately, is especially in Christianity, which takes the majority of religious beliefs around the planet, everyone's waiting for the Christ to return, for Jesus to return, I should say. But it's not that Jesus is returning. Jesus said the Christ will return. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying? So that's like, whoa, wait a minute. The Christ is returning, not Jesus. So everybody's waiting for Jesus to come on a cloud and everything else. The cloud is consciousness. Your phone is on the cloud. This video is probably going to be saved on a cloud. Yeah. And the cloud is consciousness. And coming on the cloud, the Christ is coming on the cloud. The Christ is consciousness. It's the Christ consciousness that we're all supposed to have a fractal of in our minds. The understanding of unconditional love, service to others, and all the things that we should be doing as a humanity on this planet, bringing heaven to earth and treating one another with respect and dignity. And so that truly is where the purpose or the original meaning or the teachings behind a lot of the Emerald Tablets, and also what should have been more taught coming out of the biblical texts as well.
I love all of what you just said, and I definitely have been shown that throughout this last year and a half. I've been shown a lot of what you just said, not on highest level as your research, because come on, you've been doing this since a little bitty kid. I just started this a year and a half ago.
That's okay. That's okay. You'd be surprised. Downloads are real, which mm-hmm. And we all get information from the ether that comes directly into our bodies. Because DNA receives information on a Wi-Fi. That's real science, peer-reviewed science. We receive and send information directly from the DNA into space-time and back down again. And every thought that exists and ever was thought exists in space-time all around us. It permeates the entire energy grid. So because distance is an illusion, you can download all the years it took me to get this knowledge. You can download that in 1 minute directly into your body. So the time that you start versus the time that I started, we can all be on the same playing field, because consciousness doesn't see time. It doesn't see, back, past, present, and future. It's all at once. And because the Akashic Records are real, because every thought exists in space-time, because it leaves the skull and goes out into the ether with data on it, which was the thoughts, you can grab all those thoughts and bring them right into your body. So yeah, it doesn't matter.
And I love that. Sometimes I visualize I'm Wonder Woman or something. And I'm standing there and I'm just having all these things come into me and coming together and becoming whole and becoming powerful and claiming that power. But then, it goes to those old stories, the old programming, and you were able to, break free from that at an early age, which is really awesome. To start the process of breaking free from the programming and realizing who you truly are, which is what my podcast is all about. That's the message that I got to put out into the world, is to find that power within, to realize and to remember who you truly are, and that the magic is not out there. The magic is within each one of us, and there is no magic pill. It's found within, just like what you're talking about in the Emerald Tablets, compared to all that, they took that power away from us by the way that it was skewed. So I do agree with that too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there was something else. Oh, there was something that I saw that you were talking about. So the importance goes along with this. So the importance of the inner space, the journey of the inner space, of the outer space, what's the importance of that, and how, why we should do that,
Right. Yeah. Well, a lot of people, like I said earlier, is they're looking externally for everything. We've been taught that everything is on the outside. And so we look externally. We even want to blame outside exterior things. One of the biggest downfalls of religion is that it gives you this exterior entity to blame all your wrongdoings on. So you blame everything on Satan, the devil, and then you go, well, I can get away with this because all I have to do is just repent and I'm going to be forgiven anyway. And so again, that's more exterior, type of gratification or whatever you want to call it. And so we're programmed to keep searching outside and requiring outside to take care of, instead of taking responsibility for our own, our thoughts and our own actions. We've been giving all that stuff away. And so it's really important to go internally and look inside. If you're a person that's suffering from poor finances, if you're suffering from trauma in the family with a bad relationship or bad relationships, plural, if you're suffering from drug addiction and all these other things, you have to stop and take a look in the mirror. And you have to realize that, yes, there are outside influences that put you in situations, but at the end of the day, we all have decisions that we can make. And we have to learn to become and develop to make better decisions, which takes a journey, requires us to take a journey to the inside. We have to realize that a lot of the situations and problems that we're in, probably 90% of them, were caused by our own self, our own thoughts, the Hermetic principles of cause and effect. So every decision you make is going to have a consequence, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. There will be a consequence based on every single decision. And we're filled with decisions, probably thousands, maybe even tens of thousands on a day-to-day basis that we have to make every single moment. I can make a decision right now to just get up from this table and walk away. What's the consequence going to be? You're probably going to be very upset, and this podcast won't go out, and it makes me look bad, and so blah, blah, blah. You can see how it propagates down the timeline. Or I can sit here and I can finish this podcast, give my best effort, and you'll be happy. I'll be happy. The podcast will go out. More people will hear the message, and what will propagate down the timeline? More people hear a fractal of my knowledge, and more people hear a fractal of your knowledge, and then they become enlightened and they begin to research and everything else. So we have all these decisions that we can make, but it starts with going inside first, and we have to understand that the true power is in us. And until we admit that we're the ones creating the problems, then the problems will persist until we're the ones, we realize that our attitude, our mindset, a mindset of fear, hate, anxiety, and all these other things we have, depression, those are hard things to come out of. But we have to realize that it's really starting with our own selves. And once we start to address ourselves, do the shadow work, do the body work, and seek even guidance and mentors or talk about this stuff and help us get this out, and so we can address ourselves, then we can become better people. Once we start to love ourselves, then we can truly, really love others.
Yeah, I love all of that. And it reminded me of whenever I wrote down a quote that you had in your book. It's like, how do you say it? Thoth?
Yeah, you can say Thoth, Toth. It's various different ways. Yeah.
So out of chaos comes order.
Yes.
So yeah, so I always think about that movie Inception, about the different layers of the dream. Like you can get lost in that dream and you can stay asleep, or you can get jolted and get awakened. And so I think that, we're all on that journey, and yours started rather young, and mine, I've been on the journey. It's just like all of a sudden, I woke up more. I'm starting to rise more in consciousness and awareness, and it's been really awesome. But anyway, I forgot where I was going with that, but I get sidetracked. But you were talking about something that made me think about chaos, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, the chaos really is, people are full of trauma, and we're so full of the trauma, and it fills up inside the body. Just like you're filling up a glass of water. And when the water gets to the top of the rim of the glass, if you keep putting water in, what happens? It spills over, right? Yeah. The trauma and chaos in our bodies, it works the same way. So as we have this trauma, as we have all this chaos in our bodies, it begins to fill up. And when it gets to the top, it spills over into our exterior reality. And so what happens is, if you look at your exterior of somebody who's having a lot of problems with their own personal life and things are in pure chaos, you see the chaos on the outside, but you don't see what it took to build it up on the inside over many years, sometimes just months, or it could be even just weeks, but they fill up with this chaos. It spills over. So if you see somebody that has a messy house, their car is a mess, their garage is over cluttered with all kind of stuff, they don't look clean. And they have the ability to be clean, but they don't look clean. They don't look organized. Everything is always disorganized. They're always, can't figure out what's next. They can't stay on track. A lot of the times, it is the trauma in their bodies on the inside. That chaos, that entropy, it spills over to the exterior. And so I tell people the first step you need to do is you got to start from the outside, going back in sometimes. Clean up your office, clean up your house, make up your bed, the basic stuff. Take a shower, brush your teeth. It sounds funny, but it's like, you have to tell people this, like, believe it or not, because they get into this mindset, this depressive state where they just can't take care of even the most fundamental basics. And as they begin to see this cleaning and this reorganizing of things, what happens is they begin to feel better on the inside, and then they can start to address some of the internal issues. And as that starts to relieve or release some of the trauma and some of the chaos, and as that goes down with meditation, with better dieting, with exercise to expel some of that excess energy, all of a sudden they start to feel better. They start to look better. Everything around them is organized. And, you know, so a lot of the times I tell people, you got to start with let's start with the basics. Like, did you make your bed up this morning? You'd be surprised how many people said no.
I know. And it really does make you feel like you started the day off right. And it's just a simple act, but I totally agree with you about the trauma. And I've been learning about a lot of the inner child trauma and just, you know, really looking at those shadows, like what you mentioned about that. And I had I thought this was pretty cute. Mm-hmm. I always say my higher self is really cute, but I had this thought come to me one day that, you know, Jesus even talks about this, like having faith like a child and going within. And because I love this other quote that says, you know, children are taught how to think, but not or taught what to think, not how to think.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what happens to us. But anyway, that was a side note on that. But I had this come to me where it says that we're operating on our five senses.
Yeah.
And that we lose that innocence. Mm-hmm. And so what came to me about faith like a child was that inner sense is innocence, that we lose that. Yeah. And if we can, like you said, clean up the outer, and we can start to relearn, unlearn, you know, some of the lies that we were taught, and then go within and do that work on the inner space to change even more of the outer space, I think would make our world a lot more of a beautiful place, which is what I was going to ask you about too, is you know, the importance of all of us doing this work based on the research that you've done. Like, what's the importance of this for humanity?
Be sure to tune in next week where you'll hear the rest of Billy's incredible knowledge. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me today on You Are the Magic Pill. My hope is that you leave this podcast feeling better about yourself, inspired, activated, and ready to swallow your fears to realize your dreams. I would be honored if you would leave me a 5-star review over in iTunes. Each week I'll randomly choose one person to win some You Are the Magic Pill swag. Make sure you add your name to the review and I'll reach out to you if you're the winner. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today. Be sure to pop over to youarethemagicpill.com for past episodes and more gifts to help you wake up and realize that you are the magic pill and you can change it all to have it all.